Do you have questions on nutrition when you're trying to lose weight after the age of 40? Then stick around because we might have something for you. Hey, I'm Mike,
And I'm Twain.
and welcome to another episode of FortyPlus Fit, the podcast that goes beyond the
Sorry.
fads and delves into the science behind sustainable weight loss and fitness for the 40 plus crowd, where we bring you expert insights on exercise, nutrition, and healthy habits, empowering you to make informed choices and create a personalized plan for success.
Sounds good.
Are we
Sounds
getting there?
good. I really like that intro.
We're getting there, huh? This is sounding a
We are getting
bit more
there.
professional every time we start.
We try to be every 1%, right? 1% professional. It compounds,
Yeah,
right? So that's all you need to do.
there we go.
Um,
One day people
Nutrition
will
today,
actually
right?
listen to this and say that, wow, this is actually a podcast.
Hey, I mean, podcasts were originally supposed to be just two people chatting and allowing people to get that fly on the wall insight into things, pretty much, right? And then somehow now it's really evolved into this whole commercial thing where people are pushing products and monetizing the heck out of it. Um, hopefully we don't go down that path, but hopefully we also get to the level where we are able to make that decision of not going down that path. So
Yeah.
let's just have fun with it, you know?
Well, we'll see when the time comes. Well, if the time comes, we'll see. But for
Yeah.
today, I think one of the things we want to chat about today is the topic of nutrition, as we stated
Nutrition.
in our very professional intro.
That's right.
A lot of people, I find myself included, this is probably one of the biggest issues or struggles that I find with regards to my fitness journey is the topic of nutrition. Like in my head, I can sit here and I can chat to you for 2 hours long and give you all the insights, give you all the strategies and all the data.
Yeah.
But it's the practice that really comes where we struggle. So perhaps we can look at some practical steps that people can take today to make this a lot easier to implement with regards to nutrition. But I thought we would start off with looking at some myths. So
Yeah,
cool.
sounds good.
We
Sounds good.
we
There's
see we,
tons
we
of
play the role of mythbusters and see what your thoughts are on these particular ones.
yeah, I mean there's plenty of misconceptions that go around. So it's and it's never a case where you say it once and it's done, right? It somehow these myths they persist and they persist generation after generation.
That's true.
So
And
what's the first one?
yeah, well, the first one, here we go. You ready? Sitting back.
Yep.
Skipping meals jumpstarts weight loss.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess that could be reasonable. Again, as with all these myths, there's definitely something there's truth to it, and there's certain nuances to the whole thing, right? And if you skip a meal, essentially what are you doing? You are going to be eating less. So assuming everything else is equal, yes, it's gonna jumpstart weight loss for you because now you'll be in a calorie deficit compared to what you usually eat. But of course, as with all things, it's not that simple, right? And in fact, skipping a meal is the whole premise of this whole diet fad called intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting is, as much as people want to talk about the fasting benefits and things like this, when put within such a small time window of a day, intermittent fasting essentially means skipping one of the meals, right? So if you're not going to eat for about 16 hours and only eat about 8 hours of the day, you're pretty much just eating like lunch and dinner and skipping breakfast, which is, I think, the preferred thing that most people do. Or you are eating breakfast and lunch, maybe skipping dinner. Maybe you're eating breakfast and dinner and skipping lunch. You can see how it plays out in so many different ranges. But yeah, while skipping a meal could potentially help you kickstart your weight loss, I think it's important to also understand like when you skip a meal, kind of what are some of the potential drawbacks on it. Yeah. So maybe just off the top of my head, a couple of things that come to mind. First thing is if you skip a meal, your body um will not be receiving like the proper nutrients in it to help persist with what we call protein synthesis, which is the support of recovery of the body and the muscles, in the body. If you are trying to maximize your body composition, you're trying to grow some muscle, you're trying to lose some fat and not just lose weight, then this is something you might want to watch out for, just because we want to optimize the amount of protein going into our body as frequently throughout the day as possible, just to maximize that recovery of the muscles. Yeah. So that's one potential drawback. The other potential drawback is that for most people, when they skip a meal, if they are not skipping it because they are distracted, they're just too focused on work, they're actually not really that hungry. And if it's something where they skip a meal and they end up being like way hungrier, I've seen cases where you end up, overeating at the next few meals. So whereas maybe you might have eaten 2,000 calories spread over 3 meals in the day, now you're spreading maybe almost 2,000 calories or even more over 2 meals. Because I've had people where if you get them to eat like a proper, well-balanced breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, you have, your vegetables, you have some sort of a protein component in there, you have some starchy carbs in there, a very balanced type of meal, right? And you have it over those 3 meals at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they tend to have much lesser cravings, they tend to feel much better energy, as opposed to somebody that might have skipped breakfast and then they go into lunch feeling super hungry and then they start deciding, okay, I'm going to go to the hawker center, I'm going to just get the extra bowl of chicken curry, I'm going to get the extra plate of chicken rice, um, you know, or even worse, if I have seen some people where they try to skip 2 meals and they end up just binging at McDonald's at dinner. And we all know fast food, like it's crazy, right? Like you can have one Big Mac, you can have a fries, you just have to upsize it, have a fries. Even if you have a Coke Zero or something, the Big Mac and the fries alone is easily about 1,000 calories plus. And then people don't usually stop there, right? People might get an extra pack of nuggets. People might get extra dessert to go along with it. Now you're up by another 600 calories or so. So, so that one meal alone could easily be like 1,500, 1,600 calories. And the funny part about that is that that meal is so dense in calories, you don't actually feel it as much as if you were to try to eat, let's say, 1,500 calories of fruits, veg, meats, rice. It's such a different feeling and impact on the body in that sense. So those are just some of the things there that I can think of. Any thoughts, Mike?
One thing I've always wondered is like if you skip the meal and as you say, right, your next one, because I've done this, I should admit, is you've skipped the meal because maybe you got busy with work or you got busy whatever it was, and it gets to dinner time, and so what happens is now at dinner time you almost eat double portion, so you're making up for your
Mm,
lunch and now you're eating your dinner.
yeah.
But how much of that food that you consuming can actually be metabolized by the body?
Oh, quite a large chunk actually, because if your stomach is um full, right? Like the food still takes time to go through the stomach, the whole digestive system. So
Mm.
still quite a large chunk of it can be metabolized well. Um, Potentially if you overeat, there's of course a limit point where if you eat too much, you end up upsetting the stomach because you're really pushing it to the limit. And then the food goes through the stomach faster than it can be broken down. So then you have like a lesser percentage of that being metabolized, which is technically not a bad thing. Because if you are metabolizing more of the food, you're technically yielding more of the energy and putting more of the energy into your body, right? Like your body's actually using that rather than, let's say, like the solid food piece, it's barely digested, it's passing through you. And when it passes through you, it comes out the other end, pretty much looking almost the same. Like the traditional one's always corn, right? There's always this joke about
Yes.
how corn, in some way or form, finds itself back into a kernel by the time it exits your body. But yeah, like if you're not metabolizing that, then technically you're not using the calories from that. Of course, as much as I say this, please do not use it as a rule of like, oh, maybe I should overeat, because you're still going to largely overeat and metabolize a larger chunk. So even a smaller percentage of a larger chunk of food is going to be far exceeding, a higher percentage from a smaller chunk of food.
Okay.
Hopefully that
So
makes sense. I hope that translates well through the podcast medium.
yeah, I think it might. We might need to touch back on it a few times just to get confirmation. But
Yeah.
so because you get the different schools of thought. There's the eat 3 times a day is what the general guideline is, right?
Hmm. Yep.
But then there's also the bodybuilder one, which says eat 5 to 6 times a day because you want to get the
Hmm.
consistent intake of protein. Then there's also a growing movement now where they say you're only supposed to eat once per day.
Yes. So look, all three methods are viable, to be honest. If you're talking about general fitness, I would not be overly concerned with like the scientific reason for either of these. I'll be more concerned with the logistical and efficacious reason for it. So why are you using this? Like logistically, does it fit your schedule? So I have some clients who are in really good shape, pretty shredded, they look good, but they're only eating 2 meals a day. Why? Because it fits their schedule really, really well. And potentially, could they eke out a bit more gains, if they were to eat an extra meal? Yes, there's probably some results that's left on the table, but those results are so marginal to them. It doesn't matter because they've got a great system, 2 meals a day, fits their routine just nicely.
But those two
So
meals,
when
did they
it
take
comes
any supplements with them?
yeah. So they'll take like protein powder as well to supplement the protein component. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they all live in Asia, so it's like meat is expensive in Asia, right? So you want to try to maximize the economy of things. I do have, obviously like more serious competitive bodybuilding clients. They do eat maybe 3 to 4 meals a day. That's just because, look, if you're competitive, we want to maximize things. We're not just looking for easy, convenient things. We are intentionally trying to maximize the situation. You want to do your best. And so then we maximize things in that way, spread it out to about 4 meals a day. They have a bit more of the frequent protein feedings. But that's honestly where that limit point is for the science for protein synthesis. Like anything more than that is probably not worth your effort and time. If you are like, you really want to be hardcore, you want to do like 5, 6 meals a day, you could do that. I'll be honest with you guys, I do like 5 to 6 meals a day. And the reason for that is not so much because of any kind of like metabolic issue that I want to kind of maximize. It really is a logistical thing because at this stage I'm eating so much that I need to spread out over 5 to 6 meals. Because if not, I eat one meal and I feel so full, I just don't feel like eating already after that.
You don't feel like doing anything after that.
Yeah, yeah. So it does affect, there are some of these intangible things, or sorry, qualitative effects that happen that we also kind of have to take into account beyond just the quantitative numbers of things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think let's move on to myth number two.
Yeah. Just do it.
This is one that I struggled with because of probably from my parents telling me many times growing up. Eating late at night automatically leads to weight gain.
Oh, I like this one. Because I do have a few clients that have asked me this many times as well. And yeah, I think there is some truth to it in the sense that if you eat late at night and you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and you weigh yourself, you would have a lot more food volume in your stomach. And so there'll be a bit more water retention. There's going to be that food volume in the stomach, in your gut. We call it gut volume, right? Still going through your digestive system, hasn't made its way out yet. That will impact the weight on the scale. In very much the same way as like right now I have a shaker bottle. I'm raising up a shaker bottle here. And this shaker bottle it says 600, no, it's probably about 700 mils of it. So if I drink this whole thing right now and I go and weigh myself, I'll be like 0.7 kilos heavier. So that's the way it impacts your weight. However, that being said, look, if you are still controlling the amount of calories, you know how much you're eating. Um, Honestly, the grand scheme of things, your weight will fluctuate, but it will level out to the point where it's you're not going to gain weight in the long run if you are consistent with your deficit and the amount of food that you're eating and the accuracy of the food that you're eating. So that's pretty much it. Like you could eat at night, you could eat in the morning, you could eat midday, whatever. It probably would not impact your long run weight. Will it impact your day-to-day weight? Yeah. But in the long run, you will still be making gains.
Okay. I've taken a bit of a different route with this one because
Hmm.
I struggled with it. And you day to day, everything is always different, right? You have a different schedule, you have
Yes.
different things happening, things
Yes.
prop up that maybe wasn't planned for, and all these kind of things. And
Yes.
so I used to get to the end of the day and it's like, well, okay, I still have, call it 500 to 600 calories that I still need to eat. And I've finished my dinner or I skipped my dinner, but I don't feel hungry. And it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
let's try force feed something here just to make up the calories. And I
Okay.
found like this was not very um, it provided unnecessary stress where there should not have been any to begin with.
In
And
in
so
what in what sense though? What sort of stress? Like mental stress or physical, like digestive stress to the body?
I think it's more mental because you're like you have to, I'm a very task list kind of guy. So when I have my
Hmm.
task list, I need to check for the day. And if it's not
I
checked,
see.
then it's like, oh, my day is not complete and I just can't rest. So
Yes.
to counter this is I looked at it a different way. So let's see the calories, let's call it 2000 per day, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I then averaged it over a week. So call
Yeah.
it 14,000 calories that week. My target then is to consume the 14,000 calories in that week. So there might be some days that I'll hit 1,500. There might be some days I'll hit 2,500 and so on and so
Yeah.
on. But I allow that in the process in order to um, average it out and make it easier for me to manage. So there's not such a strict day-to-day schedule that I need to keep. It gives me the buffer. So if I'm going out for a meal, I know, okay, I can go and I can enjoy this meal. I don't have to go back and look at my calories and say, oh, okay, I've actually finished up my calories for the day, so maybe I'll just eat a salad when I get there. And it's like, what's
Yeah.
the point in going? So I've managed it to do that, and that helps me a lot, and it
Yeah.
makes it far easier to manage for myself.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think that's a great way to look at it. On a weekly basis is probably the best way to look at it. I would say look at your weekly average and say like what is the average that we need to be in a deficit. So example, if you're 2000 calories, like that's your maintenance, and you're trying to eat about 1005, your average should be about 1005. So some days you might eat 1008, some days you might eat 1002. They even out, right? Um, that being said, though, I think in the long run, there is something to be noted about consistency. And when I say consistency, I'm talking about like foundational consistency. It doesn't mean every day has to be 100%, but it means there has to be certain skeleton structures to the day, especially with regards to nutrition that are almost systemized and automatic. So I'll give you an example here. Like most people don't actually plan protein. Their protein becomes an afterthought. So one of the things that we do, especially for a lot of clients, since a lot of them are in Asian countries, we try to plan out the skeleton structure of how they're going to get all their protein in. And a sample structure could be something like morning, they're definitely going to have two eggs. They're going to have a scoop of protein. For some of them, it's maybe a scoop of protein. They're going to have a serving of yogurt. For some of them, it's just two scoops of protein, whatever it is. And then for lunch, they bring another scoop along with them, to drink before they go out for lunch at the office, things like this. And then you get another meal that's fairly rich in protein. All right. And then once it comes down to dinner, then they'll have a little bit more flexibility because more or less they've hit a decent amount of protein for the breakfast and the lunch, so they have a bit more flexibility there. And in this way, you can play that card of, having some days being a bit lesser, some days being a bit more, because at the end of the day, we are not robots. We just need some degree of structure and systems to things, but we need enough flexibility in the day-to-day to allow for some of these social things that might happen or things that might pop up. Um, that being said, I do think there is a lot of merit in planning ahead, meaning choosing the moments and the days that you actually want to enjoy yourself, like you said, right? So if you're going to go out on a Saturday with your mates, you're going to go out and you want to have a beer, you want to have eat at a rib place or something, like, man, it sounds so guy,
Yeah, I was gonna
it's
say like
like
real man
such a
food.
guy's night out kind of deal. But yeah, if you want to do that, then you can plan for that, because that's the part that makes that life worth living kind of deal, right? That's the bonding between mates and just like, hey, chilling out. That's the life part that is quality of life experience. And so how do you support that? You can say, okay, maybe in the rest of the days, like you were mentioning, I try to just eat a bit lesser. So maybe on most of the days I ate anywhere between like 1,004, 1,003, and then I buff up a little bit of that extra buffer, 100 to 200 calories a day. I add it over there, easy. I can stay within that quite well. And the average to comes out to 1,005. So yeah, so there's definitely a lot of merit in planning ahead and then having a general day-to-day skeleton structure of things to go with, because that takes care of a large chunk of your consistency already. And then there's less things for you to worry about, less things for you to keep thinking. Because if you have to think about like every meal, what should I eat? Then the problem is that you're thinking about what should you eat every meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's way more things. I'm pretty sure for most of you listening, there's going to be way more things that you have to worry about, like with work, with your kids, with family, with things that needs to get done around the house, right? There's bigger things than like what do you need to eat. At least
Yeah.
we are fortunate enough, I guess, in this day and age to be able to say that. Yeah.
At least when you plan out your meals like this, it takes less guesswork out of your day as well. You know, like when you come home from
Yes.
work, you're tired. It's like, oh, now what to cook for dinner? What to this? What to that? And you're just like, oh, let's just go eat out or something like that. Whereas
Yeah.
if you've planned it out, you know what's on there. You either you've meal prepped already or you know what to cook. So
Yeah.
it takes that
Or
whole
even
thing out
if
of.
you're gonna if you're even if you're gonna eat out, you also kind of know like, okay, cool. If I'm gonna eat at, let's say for example, McDonald's, I know what I'm going to get because I know how many calories I have left to kind of still stay within the plan.
Yeah,
Because there's a difference between eating for like convenience and health. So both can overlap. And then there's the other aspect of it where you're eating for the enjoyment of things. I think being very intentional about either is important. Most people end up falling into the eat for enjoyment as a coping way, coping mechanism for either some level of dissatisfaction with other areas of life, or just the fact that they're not as prepared as they should be. And I think being honest with ourselves about which parts of it is which is very important. Yeah, because that's honestly the only way to make this sustainable. Like healthy eating has to be something that we all do, right? But we have to also define it for ourselves, like when we going to so-called go off the rails in a sense.
that's true. I mean, we have a saying like, yeah, if I send my wife a text saying I feel like eating cake, then she knows, okay, somebody's going through a bit of a stressful time here. So I can totally relate to what you were saying.
For sure, man. For
All right,
sure.
let's have a look at myth number three.
Yes,
And
please.
and this is a very common one that I hear from everybody. All
Oh,
carbs are bad and should be eliminated.
yes, they're right. We are a keto podcast. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We don't take sides. We stand on the side of truth, right? So, what's the deal with carbs then? You know, why are carbs considered bad? I think for a lot of people, it comes from the keto movement, I suppose. Is that like kind of where you first got that from, Mike?
Well, it's not just from them. I also hear it from a lot of people here when they say, oh, they want to lose weight. So the first thing that they want
Yep.
to throw out the window is carbs. They want to stop eating
Uh,
carbs.
okay.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. So I think from that perspective, maybe the idea of like carbs here is the definition of carbs is already misaligned. So most people think of carbs as like, oh, pasta, going out to eat
Nice.
noodles, going out to eat rice, things like this, right? And sure, a large portion of these foods have carbs, but even more so, a large portion of these foods have fats as well. If you're eating any local cuisine, if you're in Southeast Asia eating any local cuisine, like char kway teow, right?
Oh,
Fried kway teow, fried noodles. That's great. That's awesome. I love it. But that's not just carbs. That's a large portion of fat as well.
hmm.
If you can think about any food that is nice, okay, that tastes great, that has a super nice, interesting flavor profile,
Okay.
what are the macro components of it, right? You have a large chunk of carbs, you have a large chunk of fat, and you
Mm.
have a small little amount of protein.
Yeah.
And the reason why that is, I mean, if you look at the like food science and you think about like evolutionary biology in terms of taste preference and like survivability, there are some rationales that have been, hypothesized about why we move towards certain types of foods. Because these foods are very energy dense, right? Carbs and fats. They're very energy dense. You combine them together, there's so much flavor, they're highly palatable. So if you think about it from like a survival scenario, if you have a lot of these, you want to eat as much as you can so you can store as much body fat on you for times when you don't have that.
Yeah.
Problem is our environment has changed so drastically where, again,
What
if
is
you are
readily
listening to this,
available?
you are in an affluent area or country where you have access to food. Like if you're listening to this in Singapore, you're listening to this in Malaysia, you're listening to this wherever else, right? Chances are you're sitting in a city where you can take up your phone and go on Uber Eats, Deliveroo, whatever new food app there is, and orders something in.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get food. And and that's just the issue with the environment. So it's in a way, it's not really people's faults that they are overeating to some degree, just because the environment facilitates it. But awareness and taking control of that is still the way to go. Like we still have to recognize we have to do something about that. So going back to the main thing about carbs is just a large portion of these carbs that people are eating is just a ton of calories coming from both carbs and fats. So it's already a misdefinition of what a carb is. If you literally just eat like rice and protein, and that was majority of your meals, right? A veg, rice, and some sort of a protein, a very lean protein, okay, with minimal fats. Chances are you'll lose weight pretty fast, right? Because the calories will not be very high. Like a bowl of rice is only about 200, 250 calories. A bowl of fried rice is like 400 calories. Oh, where did the 150 calories come from? Oh, it's
The
the
flavor.
additional quantity. It's the flavor. That's where the calories came from. It came from the flavor. Yeah. So I would say a large chunk of that is that. The other thing to it is also if you cut out carbs, carbs are what is known in the body as hydrophilic. So they love water, right? 1 gram of carbs kind of absorbs about 3 grams of water. So it holds on to water so much. And we all know that when your body has a lot more water retention, your body weight kind of goes up. So if you eat more carbs, chances are in the short term, your body weight might spike up a little bit. But the converse is true. A lot of times when people do stuff like keto, they cut out their carbs. It's a combination. It's a large part of it in the initial stages where you cut out the carbs, you drop a lot of water, you see a huge chunk of weight drop. Now, for some people also, that cutting out the carbs also means that you're cutting out some of these other food items that I talked about, which is carbs and fats, right? So now you're dropping your calories down pretty low as well. You're probably eating salads and just lean proteins and maybe drinking a protein shake, whatever it is. And so you're dropping your calories down. And that's also going to contribute to the weight loss component. So a lot of times, I think these are the two overwhelming reasons why everybody, instinctively goes towards like, oh, I got to drop out my carbs in order to kind of lose weight. But it's a lot more nuanced than that. Like you probably have to eat less rice, and I put that in inverted commas, but also, probably have to eat less fatty foods in general.
I think you raised a good point there as well, is that, whenever you go on a weight loss diet, for your first week of that weight loss, you actually don't lose weight per se, but what you're losing is water, right? Your water weight, water
No, no,
weight,
you
if you
you
can
you
say.
lose. Wait, let's
Or should we say you lose weight, but you don't lose
be
fat?
specific. Yeah, you lose
Yeah.
weight, but you're not losing fat. Yes,
Yeah, so
exactly.
you're losing water from that perspective, and that's the first
A
thing to
large chunk
go.
of that.
And I find like that's also the thing is like when you put on weight, the very first thing you put on is the water weight, and so
Yeah.
that's where carbs is coming into play here. Is it's creating that little bit of water weight, which can help you to fluctuate your weight because as you expel that water weight or you
Mhm.
release it, that's what gives you that bounce. Especially the bounce that my wife is always so jealous of me on where I can go up 2 kilos and the next day
Yeah.
I can be down 3 kilos.
Yeah.
But it's all water weight from that perspective. And
Yeah.
so that's probably something that's also led people to believe it's like, oh, okay, carbs are evil because of that bounce, but they don't see that it actually
Yeah.
comes down again thereafter and how quickly you can get rid of it.
Yeah,
There was
it's a
a
combination of these various misconceptions together that people draw like very strong conclusions from. But if you understand how it works, you realize that it's not quite that way, right? Like it's just the way the body works. Like if this is what you're experiencing, you should be happy because your body's working exactly as it should. If it didn't happen this way, I'd be a bit worried because then, something's happening in your body that it's not how it should be working.
yeah. But what would you say is the primary function of carbs? Like if you're looking at the different macronutrients.
Oh, I did this. There's quite a few. I think the primary ones is this. First thing, it's quick energy for the body. Yeah, so it's really good utilizable energy that your body can use when it needs energy quick. And the situations where you need that is, let's say if you need to suddenly go for a sprint, you need to go for a long distance run, you need to sustain perpetual motion. Anything at a higher intensity than just walking around or sitting down and just being alive, right? Yeah, lifting weights, doing all sorts of sports, you need energy, and carbs come in to fulfill that function of providing this really quick energy that your body can use. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that carbs are what we would describe as very anabolic. And so they actually provide a good environment for recovery, especially of muscle tissue. And one of the main reasons why is because um, carbs actually kind of help with some of that energy for repair and function of the muscle. There's a flip side, not flip side, sorry, but there's the other side of that to carbs where it's anti-catabolic. So not only does it promote more recovery of the muscle tissue, it also helps reduce the catabolic components of like the body's processes. So catabolic, so anabolic means building up, catabolic means breaking down, right? And there are certain like catabolic hormones that come in. The biggest one everybody knows is cortisol, like the stress hormone. And when you take in carbs, it actually helps you lower some of that cortisol levels as well. So it's kind of anti-catabolic. So not only does it help you promote a bit more muscle building, it helps you prevent a bit more muscle loss as well. So that's another great function there.
Oh, that's interesting. I always looked at it as from the perspective of after a workout, you take the carbs in so that you can replace your glycogen levels, but it also then allows your body to eat that up rather than taking in the protein for recovery. The protein
Yes,
can then go
yes.
and
So
synthesize with
it's
the muscles. Yeah.
yeah. So you brought up on this other point that you brought up is exactly that. There's another function of carbs as well, which is it's protein sparing. So your body doesn't have to break down protein for energy if it needs it like quick and fast.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Right, let's go on to myth number 4. Healthy food is always more expensive.
Oh wow. Yeah, this one's actually interesting. I'm not so sure how to answer this, to be honest, because I'm just going to talk about it from my perspective of things, my experience then. Like right now, I'm in Australia. Okay, and the cost, like for me, it's not the case that healthy food is more expensive because over here, the cost of like my lifestyle and the diet that I have is cheaper than when I was in Singapore. So in Singapore, I spend on average about maybe $120 to $130 on food a week. Down here, I'm spending between $80 to $100. So I'm actually eating lesser.
Okay.
So I'm spending lesser, but I'm eating the same amount. Actually,
Hmm.
probably even a little bit more. Now
Well,
that I'm bulking. Yeah, so for me, it's not the case that healthy food is more expensive. Now, the caveat to that is that I do a decent amount of meal prep, or I have like a system in which, a lot of my meals, I kind of make my own meals, so to speak. And so if you are looking to potentially like eat out all the time and eat healthy food, which means in this case I'm going to define healthy food and healthy eating as like getting um a good balanced meal. So making sure you have enough protein in there, making sure you have enough vegetables in there, and having it being relatively light in calories, I suppose. So that kind of meal, if you're trying to eat out, is probably going to be quite expensive, especially in a local setting. Again, Southeast Asia setting, Asian setting, the kind of food culture we have with the hawker foods and stuff, it's going to be like hawker foods are cheaper by comparison, and they don't have the kind of macro balances as well that we need. And
yeah.
so when we try to modify those, example, like I buy a fish soup and I try to add more fish and stuff, it can quickly add up. And so I think that's where the impression comes from for a lot of the people that tell us, healthy food or healthy eating is expensive is because you're trying to eat out too much. Where this could possibly be saved could potentially be meal prep services. I think nowadays there's a lot of meal prep services coming out. Some are better than others. I mean, I'm not going to name specific brands because I'm not affiliated with any. But if you're all interested to know which ones I have seen from my experience or tried to be good, just let me know. I can suggest some to you in Singapore, some to you in actually mostly in Singapore. Yeah. There's some in Malaysia that I have some Malaysian clients that mentioned but I've never tried it, so I can't really comment too much. But for meal prep services could be something beneficial. And although it can look expensive from the outset, most of the time for people, especially if you're just trying to maintain your weight, lose weight, and fuel your body, it's actually not that expensive. Because if you compare, and again, the comparison here I'm making is not just a cost perspective, it's also a value perspective. Like, what are you getting for the meal prep? You are saving on labor time to prep your own meals. So you're literally saving time there, and you're literally saving energy and labor. You're saving on the mental bandwidth of having to decide, how to prep the meals, plan everything out. Most of the time now, a lot of the meal prep services, they come with some sort of calculator, and you can key in like this is my macros, this is what I want, and they give you like the closest fit menu to that. And then you don't have to worry about variety. They'll kind of give you as much variety as you want. Most of them are able to do that quite well as well. Yeah, especially with all the food tech that's been coming out.
Hmm.
So you're saving a lot more and you're spending maybe in terms of pricing about the same or maybe just slightly more than what you would if you were to eat out. But if you think about all the potential benefits and return you're getting, I think that small difference is probably worth it. Again, it really comes down to the individual here. Like, how much are you actually spending out on food? And maybe just taking a look at your own spending and saying, how much are you actually spending on food? Um, and is there a better way to kind of go about your spending on food so that you can eat healthier and still enjoy your food?
I think
What's your take, Mike?
yeah, I think for me it's the very first question I would like to ask is like how do you define healthy food? Because we've been marketed very well that if you want to take healthy food, that means that you eat organic and only organic, or you're eating free range instead of whatever else we have.
Oh, that's a great point.
And so those all, yes, they escalate the costs by a crazy amounts. But I
Yeah.
find like when you overlook that and you start looking at like let's say chicken, going
Yeah.
for the antibiotic free, blah blah blah, whatever, whatever, fantastic chicken here is like I was not raised on that chicken. I was actually raised on the regular chicken that
Mm,
ate whatever, and I came out okay. So looking at healthy eating, I always have to ask is okay, how do you define healthy eating? Do you
yeah.
look at it as you would only want to go now and eat all these particular ones, or are you open to eating like end of life shelf life items? Like most stores, I don't know in Australia if it's the same, but they usually have a shelf there where things are nearing the end of their expiry, so they give you at a reduced rate. So you can go
Yeah.
buy your chicken at half price, or you can go buy whatever else, your beef at half price, and so on and so on. And so you can get large savings if you're open to eating those kind of meals. I mean, you cook it that day. It's not like you're now going to take it home and
Yeah.
another
I
week
mean,
or
you
two.
can't keep it too long, right? If it's end of life kind of thing.
Yeah. But the fact is, it helps to reduce your costs a lot for those that can't afford it.
Yeah.
So my question is always back, and that's the very first thing I always ask is like, okay, how do you define healthy food? And are you open to other ideas? You don't have to go for pesticide-free vegetables. You can buy the regular one and just take it home and wash it.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. So
Yeah.
you can reduce your costs that way. And so when you start doing that, then it's coming back to your point earlier. It's just having a well-rounded meal. So you have your rice, your carbs, you have your vegetables, maybe two vegetables, whatever they are, and your protein. Let's call it a fish or a chicken or a beef piece in there. Or
Yeah.
if you prefer the vegetarian, you could have the beans, um, and so on and so on.
Beans or like some sort of soy base,
Yeah,
tempeh, tofu, what have you, right? But the point you raised about the organic side, defining exactly what healthy is, I think that's really important because there's a lot of food marketing out there that's designed to overinflate costs of stuff.
yeah.
And look like it's if you can afford it, by all means get everything organic, whatever. We don't care, right? But if you are complaining that food eating healthy is too expensive, then probably it matters to you.
Yeah.
So
If
there's
that's
certain
the thing
foods
that's
that
holding you back, then
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing where like there's certain foods where you definitely want to try to eat them like maybe pesticide free. And there are certain foods where like fruits where maybe or vegetables where you don't actually need to. So maybe if you go with like organic and pesticide free, maybe things with like strawberries, apples, grapes, cherries, like you could make a case for yeah, we probably should go and eat those pesticide free ones just because if there's pesticide on them, it might permeate the fruit just because of the skin and whatever. But it's the funny thing is that our bodies, especially if you are exercising well, if you're generally focusing on the balance of your meals and you're keeping a very good body composition, like you're doing all you can already to um to keep your body in tip-top shape. And so whether it's organic or not adds like such an infinitely small difference that it probably doesn't matter. It's like not worth spending too much energy and time thinking about it and not worth the cost as well, right? So what's that saying people always say like don't step over like dollar bills to pick up pennies.
Yeah.
This is the same concept there, right? Like people get so obsessed with like, oh, this chemical stabilizer in the food is going to kill you or whatever. It's like all these things are food tested and they're actually all food safe.
Yeah.
Like right now, the regulations are high enough that you actually have to prove like safety regulations before they can even be put out. And a lot of times when they do the safety regulations as well, like the top end doses for a lot of the things that they study, like artificial sweeteners, right? Like a lot of the times the top end doses that they say is the limit range is already buffered down. So even if you hit that, it's only a maybe something might happen to you kind of deal, and those ranges are tend to be super dosed ranges. You're talking like, I think like, for example, artificial sweeteners, people always talk about that, right? Like, oh, there's chemicals in it, it's going to be
Yeah.
bad for you, blah, blah, blah. But the amount that potentially they've seen effects on, in the studies is like the equivalent of maybe drinking, I think, 28 cans, 30 cans of Diet Coke a day. So if you're not drinking 28 to 30 cans of Diet Coke, you're not drinking like what, 4 liters of Diet Coke a day, you're probably fine. And again, that don't forget that 3 to 4 liters is like maybe something might happen to you.
If you're drinking 4 liters of Diet Coke a day, I think there's other issues we need to take care of.
There are other issues that you need to tackle, you know. Yeah. So don't worry about the things that are not super important. Yeah. Eating healthy doesn't have to be expensive.
Hmm.
It really doesn't.
Okay. Myth number 5. You can't
Myth
build
number-
muscle or lose weight effectively after the age of 40.
Oh, that one's a well-defined no. That myth is like, definitely that's a myth. Look, like this, if you think that, then you are just giving yourself an excuse to not try. Honestly, I have to be honest here. It doesn't matter what age, really. Like what the age affects sometimes is, yes, your potential capacity and rate of progress and stuff like this. But the truth is, look, I've had clients that started at 50 or 50 plus, and they're in better shape now than they were when they were 20. So it
Hmm.
really doesn't matter too much, like whether you're past 40 or not. What matters more is that, okay, taking stock of where you're at right now, what's your experience? Where's your current fitness levels at? And then going from there. Because most people think only about the outcome and they're not real enough with like where they're at. And
Hmm.
because of that, they tend to take up, like somebody that's 40 plus, that's maybe already sedentary. They might have been active at 20, right? Maybe they might have been going to the gym. Maybe they might have been avid gym goers when they were 20. But they come to 40 plus here and then they haven't trained for 10 years. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to take what I did when I was 20 years old and do it again. And like, no, that's probably a mismatch, right? You have to recognize where you're at right now
Yeah.
and then plan according to that to progressively enter back into things, right? So I would say definitely no. 100%. It's not about whether you're 40 or not, or you're past your prime or whatever nonsense. Like don't let that narrative hold you down. I have like so many friends who are doing bodybuilding and they are competing and they're entering to their best shape every single year. And they are like, one of the ladies that I know, she just competed in one of the I mean, at least at the time of this recording, right? In one of the competitions in Singapore, she's like 49 this year, and she's in better shape than she was when she was 40.
Sure.
So it gets better. Definitely it gets better. And the key thing here, though, I would say is the older you get, the more important strength training really becomes.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, we need more and more and more of that muscle to stay. Because the muscle equals quality of life. Of course, to an extent. There is potential where like you could get maybe a bit too muscular if you really try really, really hard. But it's not that easy. So I wouldn't even worry about that. It's like trying to get too rich, right? So I'll worry about that when that happens. If I accidentally become too rich, I'll stop working too much and I'll just like dial it back a bit. So definitely, I think that's the only caveat I will put there. Make sure you do some sort of strength training. Otherwise, move, get active, eat well, and yeah, then that way you can enjoy life.
Hmm. I think if I speak from my own personal experience, I would say is okay, there might be a slower when it comes to building muscle. Like I can't put on muscle as what I did when I was younger. But when it comes to losing weight, I don't see any difference between the two. As long as you're putting in the
Yeah.
right strategies, there's no reason why you would not be losing weight, unless there's like some other medical issue.
Yes, yes. I mean, if you have a medical issue like a thyroid issue or something, that influences the environment and makes it more difficult for you to lose weight. It does not change the mechanism by which you lose weight. It just makes it more difficult. And so we have to work around those difficulties. So an example is like if you get hypothyroid issues, your body's metabolic rate like naturally slows down, right?
Mm.
So it just means that you have to eat way lesser than somebody else. You might need to exercise a bit more and then really hyper focus on the recovery and stress variables that are coming into play a lot better. Because if you don't focus on the stress variables, it's going to push your thyroid issues even worse down. And then it's going to make it even harder for you to cut. I mean, like there's a limit to how much calories you can cut also before you just go crazy, right?
That's true.
So yeah, so it doesn't change the mechanisms by which the weight loss happens. It just changes the difficulty of it. And life's unfair. Like some of us get dealt a worse cut than others in certain areas. And so you just have to figure out what's your hand, how do you play it, so that you can at least get out from the game without losing. You get out from the
Well,
game and
depends
you
if
can walk
you
away
if
from that.
losing is the goal. Losing weight, that
Well,
is.
I mean, obviously, I don't mean without losing weight. Yeah, but that's definitely that. And then the other part about building muscle, scientifically, yeah, I would say you probably couldn't build as fast as when you were younger. But the truth is also most people don't do things properly when they are younger anyway.
That's so
So
true.
now if you do it and you're smart about it, you'll be surprised how much progress you can actually make. I've seen that happen with clients that come who are 40 plus, like all these guys that are 40 plus, and somehow they just are able to put on a decent amount of muscle when they know how to train because they tell us like, oh shit, wow, even when I was younger, I never trained like this.
Mm.
I'll just go in the gym, I'll just pump up, I'll get a burn, and oh yeah, it'll be great. But they never train with the level of intent and purpose, yeah, and understanding that we can't teach them or we try to impart to them. And so I think there is a lot to be said about like just not even worrying about how much muscle you can build, and all this sort of stuff, and just focusing on like, okay, how can I maximize everything so that I can build the most muscle, I can be the most active, I can keep my heart as healthy as possible, and then I can also lose as much fat as possible. Not even just weight, but how much fat can I lose?
I think also like when just thinking back now on that particular point is that oftentimes like when you reach 40, right?
Yeah,
Looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger is not really the goal anymore, isn't it? For most, there might be like
for
a
most people, yeah.
1% that do want to do that, but for most of us, we all wanted to have functional fitness that we can get healthy, we can lose weight, we can be practically, or we can have practical fitness in order to play with our kids or whatever. So that's the
Yeah,
ultimate goal. So generally, when it comes to packing on the muscle, that's probably not the goal of most of us. Whereas when
correct.
we were 20, it's like, okay, I want to be the next Arnie. You know what I mean?
For many, yeah, yeah, for many young men, right? Like, oh, we have to be jacked and we have to be shredded in order to get the goals and stuff, right? Like we have a lot of these adolescent kind of pursuits and understandings and perspectives. And of course they shift as we mature. And life is so much more than just like how we look, but how we look also impacts how we enjoy life, right? So to a very large degree. And so I think both can coexist together for sure. The idea of like, and the idea here of like putting on muscle, even though I say put on muscle, I'm not even talking about, as you mentioned, like bodybuilder stuff or being shredded, six pack, huge packs, I don't know, giant shoulders, whatever. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about putting on muscle in a sense of like being above average, returning you back to normal, strong function, where standing up from a chair, squatting down to a chair, lifting things up off the ground, carrying your kids, like these are things that are easy because you go into the gym and you lift weights way heavier that by comparison, all these daily tasks are easy to do. And then finding that sweet spot of like how hard to push yourself in the gym is probably the trickiest part for people. Because most people either go too hard or they go too easy, right? Like most people don't know exactly how much to push and what makes sense. Yeah. And the reality is that the amount of work required to help you preserve a good quality of life is actually not as much as most people think. Maybe 3 times a week in the gym, 30 minutes, a good quality training session with weights, and then 3 times a week, 30 minutes, do some cardio. That comes out to like what? Maybe daily you alternate between doing a weight session, a cardio session, 30 minutes each day, something like this, right? And then if you can clock some extra steps, things like this, general activity levels, that's pretty much the formula as a formulaic as you can get already.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah. I just tend to agree with what you're saying. It's like when you know your sweet spot as well, because like I was also working out quite a bit after like before I started training with you.
Yeah.
And there were days it's like, oh, okay, let's go very light here, let's go light there. And you're actually not pushing yourself to potential because you just like fooling yourself. I go to the gym, man. Why am I not seeing the progress that I'm looking? But I'm going to the gym. But when you look at your
Yeah.
actual metrics, it's like, oh, okay, there's a reason for this. So working out with you is like then you have that person who's taken a step outside. Your facts
Mm.
or your feelings is not being taken into account here, unless of course it's adding to the stress. But you can see exactly, okay, this is the progress that I want you to take. And if you're
Yeah.
able to do this, I can 100% tell you you're able to do this. And so you plan it like that for the next workout. And so
Yeah.
that helped to push me a bit more, but more, bit more. And yeah, so I started seeing very good numbers in the gym again.
Yeah. It's one thing to have been training for a while on your own. But it's also another to like once in a while, if you get somebody to come in objectively and like push you, you might realize like how much you've left in the tank. They actually did a study on this before where they asked individuals to choose like what they think is their 10 RM for bench. And they got like I forgot what was the study size. But basically maybe something like I think 30 people. It might be less than that, but something like 30 people, and then they got them to choose like whatever they think their 10 RM on the bench was, and then they did a one like a max rep test with that weight. And on average, I believe most people, I could be wrong, but you can definitely Google this, but most people were able to do something like 16 or 17 reps with that weight. So you're like they're undershooting themselves by so much,
Yeah.
And the normal distribution, that was like the middle of that distribution. So a lot of people are just underestimating how much they're like pushing themselves in the gym. Um, and it's good to once in a while have like a buddy, or even just go sign up with a trainer to to take stock, to audit what you're doing in the gym and say like, hey, could I be doing something better? Is there a way to make my time in the gym more efficient? Because as we get older, also like time seems more and more fleeting, right? So it's one of those things where if I'm going to be in the gym, I got to make sure the time I spend in there is economized.
Yeah. That's the point really, because that's one of the things that we don't have is time. And because of that, that's one of the biggest excuses that we we use for not
We
working
tend to
out.
give, yeah, we tend to
So when
give.
you start getting effective workouts, then at least that takes that excuse out. And when you start to see the benefits from it, then that helps to build the motivation to continue.
Yeah. It's also something to be said here. Again, maintenance requires very little effort compared to when you are trying to push for change. So it
Mm.
means that getting to the results requires a lot more effort. But then once you get the results, you just need to reduce the effort down like 50%, you'll be able to maintain more or less the results.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, in
Understood,
fact,
understood.
an example I would say is like for me when I was cutting down, like last year for my photo shoot,
Mm.
I actually needed only to train about 3 times a week. In fact, I was training maybe 5 sessions towards the last four to 5 weeks. I was only training 5 sessions every 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
So that's actually less than three
Yeah.
times a week. Yeah, because you don't really need that much to actually retain muscle. And when you're cutting down to that level I was cutting down, you actually don't like I'm not trying to build muscle, I'm just trying to retain whatever muscle I have.
Yeah.
So once you get past a certain level of leanness, you can't really build much anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so it actually doesn't take as much as people think.
Yeah, it's not the 7 days a week. 3 hour a day workouts that are required, which a lot of us always believe. Right. We
Yeah, I
have,
mean, I was in that camp too, you
yeah,
know.
we have 3 more myths to go,
Oh,
but
wow.
we might be running out of time. So I think two of them we can actually combine.
Okay.
And this is the first one is eating salads guarantees weight loss. All right. So keep that one in mind. Eating salads
Okay.
guarantees weight loss. And I think we can combine that with all calories are created equal. You just need to count them.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think the topic here, if we were to ask this, what do you think the main question is?
The main question from eating
Yeah,
salads,
like for these
um,
two
I, I would say is are macros important?
macros involved. Yeah, so that's a good one. Um, I think the to answer the question then, are the macros important? To a large degree, they are. But again, what part of it's really the most important? I think for the average person looking to get fit, it's really just the protein amount. Okay, like how much protein are you taking in? Most people undereat protein because it's not the most natural thing to eat. Unless, like in your cuisine, in your culture, protein forms a large chunk of what you naturally eat. And that tends to be a lot of the Eastern, no, not Eastern, European-based kind of Nordic cultures, right? Where meats and yeah, where meats and proteins tend to be relatively a big portion of the diet. But yeah, for especially for us, we are all in Asia and stuff, like the traditional meal does not contain much protein. So the first thing is really just focusing on protein. Yeah. And that's pretty much the main macro you want to focus on, and everything else around that would be the total calorie amounts. So how much are you eating in general? Like what's the total amount of calories that you're eating? The other macro, actually, I forgot to mention this, but the other macro will be fiber. So protein and fiber. Yeah, these two. These are two most important things. So fiber is definitely then in the form of vegetables. So that kind of comes in where people, the myth you talked about, eating salads is you're going to lose weight. I mean, for sure, if you eat generally a lot of salads, you're probably going to fill up your body, your stomach quite well. You're going to eat lesser, i.e., you're going to get lesser calories. You're going to get a whole bunch of fiber, which is very health promoting. And then if you're tackling your protein as well, you will see quite a good amount of weight loss and also fat loss. So I think that's the general answer to that. The other one about a calorie being a calorie though, like all calories are created equal. I think down here what people are talking about is actually food quality. Like it's a
Chocolate.
calorie from chocolate, the same as a calorie from an apple. By definition, yes, because a calorie is just a unit of measurement. It's like saying it's a kilo from feathers, the same as a kilo from weights. Yeah, because they're both 1 kilo, right? Like, but they're different things. The quality of the thing is different. And so that's what we need to look at. Like, and I think that's what people are trying to argue about when they say, no, a calorie is not a calorie. Like, a calorie is a calorie because you can't change what a calorie is. It's the unit of measurement.
Yep.
Yeah. But the quality of the calories that you get in, okay, that's what really matters here. So majority of the time, your quality of your calories should be, i.e., what we just talked about, the macros. A large chunk of your calories should be, protein, maybe like 30% of it should be protein. And a decent amount of the foods that you choose should have quite a fair amount of fiber in them to help meet your fiber needs. And then once you solve those two, then understanding the total calorie amounts and constraints that you need to work within for your intended goals. If you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to maintain weight, if you're trying to gain weight even, will become more and more important.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you think that answers the question? Or do you think that busts the myth?
I think it probably hits a lot of it, but if I can just add to it as well, I think for me
Yes,
as
please.
well, when I read these kind of myths, like eating salads guarantees weight loss, right? I think if you're just eating salad, like literally just the salad, sure, okay,
Yeah.
yes, you're probably going to experience some weight loss and probably
Yes.
no joy in life, probably as well. But like I use this always the example is like I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the fast food chain. Well, they consider it a fast food chain, but Subway, the Subway
Oh,
sandwiches.
wait, yeah.
So you go to the place, you get to choose all the veggie you want to put onto your sandwich, and then
Yeah.
after that you get to put a sauce.
Yeah.
So I always find it so amusing when I sit there and then people are like, "Oh, I've come to Subway because it's the healthier alternative." So I come and I'll take the lettuce and I'll take some tomato, maybe a little bit of onion. And if I'm feeling adventurous today, I put maybe two olives on as well. And then it comes to okay, that's it. That sounds good. That's healthy enough. Move on to the next thing. And then it's like, okay, I want the Thousand Island sauce. I want the barbecue sauce. I want the chili sauce. I want the mayonnaise. I want. And I was like, what did you even come here for? You're like having a little bit of salad with all your sauces. And
Uh,
so all of those sauces are no longer salad, you know. Now you're adding a
yeah.
fat component to your salad. And
Yeah.
those are going to drive your calories up astronomically. So when you're saying eating
True.
salads guarantees weight loss, not necessarily the case because it all depends on what is the dressings or what are you adding to the salad.
100%, man. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a lot of the technical term I like to tell clients is these are ninja calories.
Ninja.
The ninja calories because they sneak in without you realizing. And they don't seem like they are a lot, but they kill your gains, you know. They assassinate your gains. So they're ninja calories.
I like that one. I think I'll remember that one from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're totally right. You know, you're totally right on that.
Now, if we move on to the all calories are created equal, I think this one also for me it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is purely, I want to lose weight, okay,
Yeah.
all calories are created equal. You go ahead. If your calories are from McDonald's or from KFC, you know, go ahead as long as it fits into your calorie intake for the day. But generally, when we talk about these things, like especially if we talk about it, there's two elements that we talk. One is from a health perspective, right? And the other one is usually from a body recomposition perspective.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody now that's actually taking in the right amount of protein for the day, and then supplementing that with the fiber, as you say, and the right amount of carbs to fuel the workouts and all that kind of stuff, and you take somebody on the other side that's like just eating KFC buckets every day,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that when you do the blood work at the end of 3 months or whatever, there's going to be a slight difference between the two.
I
And
reckon
and I'm
I reckon
sure like
there
yeah.
will sorry, no, but I reckon there will be a difference, but it will but assuming that we calorie equate both diets, there probably won't be that much of a difference.
But one's going to have
If,
a lot of
if
trans fats, where the other one's got.
No, no, no. Like it's probably not going to impact that much as much as people think. Because one of the prerequisites for healthy blood work is to actually be within a reasonable weight range and to have a decent amount of muscle. Like have a relatively well-balanced composition. Like those are the basic premise of like generally healthy blood work. Of course, you know, notwithstanding any kind of very specific conditions and stuff like this. But so if both people are eating the same amount of calories, they're dropping weight down from the same place down. So I'm just using like identical twins or whatever, right?
Mm.
And they are using the same diets that you mentioned. The difference in blood work will not likely be very drastic. Sure, maybe the KFC person could potentially have like higher triglyceride counts, things like this, just because they have more fat floating in the bloodstream.
Yeah.
But those ranges would probably still be within relatively healthy ranges. And I'm assuming both of them also exercise, do the same stuff and all, so that you know the only variable is really just the diet.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. But that's not but I wanted to put that out there because I just wanted to make sure we don't go down that path of like saying, you know, like the KFC or all these kind of stuff is like bad per se. It's more in that like it can't you if you're only eating KFC and stuff, you're probably not going to get in a decent amount of fiber in the first place.
Yeah.
You're not likely to be able to get a high enough amount of protein while keeping within your calorie count. Could you keep within your calorie count and eat KFC and all? Yes, but will you meet all those other metrics we talked about? Probably not.
Mm. So those are the things
Yeah.
that when I talk about it, it's like that's what we aim towards. Because when you're looking at KFC comes in with all the deep fried stuff, right? So you're
Yes.
cooking it all in a lot of oil. You're bringing in a lot of the saturated fat,
Yeah.
and because of that, your calories shoot up. So the amount of protein that you're actually going to be consuming from that, compared to say somebody who's eating chicken breasts or fish,
Yep.
there's going to be a difference. So by the end of the day, you're going to have the difference. And I also want to just echo what you're saying is like we're not demonizing food. If you like your
Yeah.
occasional KFC, by all means go and have your KFC.
Occasional
That's not the
KFC.
issue. What is
That's
the
the thing,
issue
right? Yeah.
is doing it in moderation. Like
Yeah.
don't eat KFC every day for every meal, but use it as something, when you want it, you go and you enjoy it. But just counter that with a healthier diet elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree with that. Um, yeah.
Right.
But as always, we want to make sure we present the the clearest representation of how things work.
Yeah. Cool. And then the final myth. There's a magic one size fits all diet for everyone.
Ah, this is definitely not. No, the one size fits all diet for everybody is the diet that you will do.
The one you'll stick to.
The one you'll actually stick to and you can actually continue to use for, a lot of time to come.
Yeah. So like
I
we
think
always say, and we've said this in previous podcasts as well, we have nothing against people who do intermittent fasting. We have nothing against people who are doing keto. But nothing against all those different ones that they all find works for them. The difference
yeah,
that why they're seeing the results is because they're sticking to it.
exactly.
And so for us, it's always like, okay, so find the one, whatever it is, whether it's
Yeah,
even eating the one meal a day, two meal a day, whatever it is, but find the one that works for you, that fits your lifestyle, that you're able to sustain and keep for a long period of time.
for sure. That's really the main thing, right? Like finding that thing that works. I do think there's some additional points I like to make here about that as well. And I think the first thing is understanding that at different points in your life, because of the way the seasons of your life change, the way your logistics change, your schedules might change, you would need to adopt different ways of, like, I guess, eating and having your meals and things like this. And this is why it's so important, why we keep stressing about what are the main principles, because principles are not a diet. Principles are the ideas that help you shape how you form your diet and how you structure your diet. So maybe you might not be able to get in 3 square meals a day right now because you can't stay at home and work from home and cook also often because you got a new job, whatever it is, and you have to go and work somewhere else, right? Now you need to change things up and find your next strategy to allow you to still get in your protein, get in your fiber, still hit those same calorie amounts generally that you have been eating, and then, adopt that new system moving forward. So there is some reflective process that needs to be done from time to time, especially as you have like big things happening, big life changes. And the big life changes, why I mention this is because a lot of times when people come to me for help with their weight loss, most of it's weight loss, right? But let's say even strength, health, and fitness, stuff like this, it usually comes off the back of a time being spent regressing in their health and fitness, right? They put on some weight, they've gotten way, way, way unfit because of life changes, because of big life events. Usually this is the birth of a kid, having a new kid, right? Sometimes could be something as tragic as death in the family. Sometimes this could be, changing of a completely new job. Sometimes this could be something as stressful as like moving house and having a totally new setup, things like this. And this is important to understand. Like when these things happen, you have to be willing to be flexible in the way you look at things. And the only way to be flexible is to understand how things actually work. And that's why the principles are the things we always go back to. Make sense?
Yeah. And I think yeah. I think that's really the one that we always try and stress when we talk to people about these kind of things is those principles.
Yeah.
Because the more you can focus on that, the more flexible your lifestyle can become. You're not so rigid in the things that you need to do.
There's a recent quote I saw about this, which I thought was that really encompasses this. Be stubborn with your vision, but be very flexible with your methods.
Stubborn with your vision and flexible with your methods.
Yeah.
Hmm, that's quite a good one to
So
take.
yeah, because you know what is your vision of how you want things to be. But the situations and circumstances will change from time to time. It's never like I do it this once, I formulate this thing, and it will go on
Hmm.
forever. Nothing is forever in that sense. So we will have at some point this requirement to change things, to edit it, to modify it. It might be a small modification, it might be a big modification, but hey, we will definitely need to change something. And that's why we need to be really flexible in adopting things and, let's say taking things out that don't work anymore.
Yeah.
But never losing sight of like that path. Where are we going? What are we trying to do? You
Hmm.
know? Yeah. So I
I
thought
think
that would be a great quote to have.
that's the Shifu quote for the day, is it?
Yes, for this podcast, be be stubborn with your vision, but flexible with your methods. I don't even know where I saw it, to be honest. It's Instagram, man. Like Instagram, as much as I rag on social media all the time, like Instagram, sometimes you have some good accounts and you see some of these little nuggets of wisdom.
I would have expected it coming from Kung Fu Panda or something like
That would be way more legit, to be honest.
that. All right, I think we can probably on that wisdom note we can probably call it a day.
I think
Um,
we should.
so I think we covered the 8 myths for uh, that people usually have when it comes to nutrition, and
Mhm.
we were able to stretch it over quite a long period of chatting here. But
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened all the way to this point, I mean, I thank you for that. But really, just let us know. So I'm not sure how do people comment on these things? Like, is it on the Spotify comments and things like this?
on Spotify, they do have something what you can interact with, which like a Q&A
Okay. Yeah,
that
so if you guys have
they
questions,
can
whatever it
answer
is,
a question and comment on there.
yeah, just drop a comment down below there. I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Yeah, one day,
Or high production quality here would suggest.
one
We'll
day we
figure it
might
out.
actually just know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, just leave a comment there. We'll definitely get to it. We'll be very excited to see it, I imagine, because again, we're so fresh and so new. We are
Yep.
still in that phase where any question that comes our way, we'll be super excited to greet it. I'm sure that at some point we'll become incredibly jaded by the amount of questions we get.
You never know. If you're the first question, we might make a whole podcast about it. A whole
We might,
episode
we
just about
might
that
be
one
able to.
question.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions, definitely leave them down below, and we'll do our best to get to it. If not, if you like to get like more direct conversations with us, or rather like okay, if like for me, if you want to get a direct conversation with me, you can always go to fitforlife.io. So it's fit number 4life.io. Just submit your contact information, we'll get reach out back out to you. Mike,
Yep.
if people want to talk to you, where do they have to go?
Well, they can go to the website, the 40Plus Fit website, 40plusfit.com. And
FortyPlusFit.com.
yeah, they can go through the contact there. We're hoping to also have some social media soon. We
Soon,
see how
hopefully
that
by the
goes.
time this episode goes up, we do have some social media.
Yeah, we're actually making our progress. Well, as you said, 1% each time, right?
Percentage time. And honestly, like that's the thing to take away here before we close this out. Like, just make that 1% every day. In health and fitness, in anything else that you do that little bit of improvement, enjoy the process, and you won't pressure yourself into quitting so soon.
Awesome. So with that, we'll call it a day.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Mike.
joining, guys. You all have a great
Thanks,
week.
guys.
All right. Bye.